I think the microphone for the people online. Can you hear me online? I'm waiting for Jeremy.
For opening the sutra.
Good morning, everyone. We find ourselves in another, some of you anyway, find yourselves again in a 7-day session. Some of you for the first time, I hope. I did my first 7-day, first of all, I'm feeling gratitude just to see you here. And we're practicing together again. And we have this tradition. It's been given to us, handed down to us. This wonderful wisdom tradition. And we can practice it together. No one's stopping us from doing this yet. And I did my first 7-day session in the early 70s. I had just graduated from university and I moved into the Zen Center Los Angeles, and I did my first 7-day session with Kori Roshi, who was one of Maizumi Roshi's teachers. And Kori Roshi was he was a terrific person, terrific teacher. He was short, a little small guy. But when he gave Teishos on Mu, he turned into a lion. He just roared. Had this huge voice. And his Teishos would often take like 2.5 hours because my Zumi Roshi had to translate into English because he didn't speak any English. But I loved Kori Roshi. He was I was, I don't know if I was his attendant or something, but I mean, during the sesshin, there was this, he wore contact lenses and he lost some on the floor, on the rug in the Doksan room. I remember being down on my hands and knees looking for those contact lenses. And in those early days, our practice was very Rinzai kind of style, really a lot of yelling, and we'd go into the Doksan room and there'd be a lot of yelling. And fortunately, they had soundproof walls on the Doksan room, so because if they hadn't, the neighbors probably would have called the police. You know? And then during the breaks, I remember Kori Roshi would walk down the street and he would be looking at he'd be like a 5-year-old. He's just looking at everything. This is the middle of Los Angeles. And he was kind. He was very kind. He didn't speak any English. And he wanted to see my mother. And my parents, my father had just died about a year before. No, my father was, I'm mixed up in time. My father had died. My mother was still alive, and our home was in Fullerton, which was about 50 miles maybe from Los Angeles. And so I took him down to our home, and my mother gathered together some neighbors and served him lunch, and he didn't understand a word anyone was saying. He was smiling the whole time, and just wide open. And my mother, and they didn't know what to make of him, but he was kind. You know, he was kind. And it was kind that he went down, because he didn't have to do that. He did that. And you know, Kori Roshi was getting on, and he had choppers, as I do now. I won't give you too much information, but I remember at the end of the retreat, we went to a party at someone's home in the Hollywood Hills. It might have been Ruth Dennison's home. And he was tired. You know, he'd been teaching for the whole sesshin. He was on the couch and he was falling asleep, and as he'd nod off, he'd catch his teeth. And here I am, you know, 55 years later, and I'm still doing the same practice. And boy, after that first session, I wasn't sure I wanted to do anymore. Really, I had never experienced that kind of intensity, or it was off the charts. And I mean, sometimes someone would be crying in the Zendo, and one of the monitors would say, "Okay, everyone cry." And we'd all cry together. I felt like I was like in an insane asylum. Like, what is this? You know, what did I, you know, it's just like, Daizan said, what am I getting myself into? You all kind of feel that, don't you? You're like, you signed up for Ongo. You signed up for this retreat. So I have deja vu feeling about all of this, and it's still wonderful, and it's not quite as rigorous as it was 55 years ago for me. But Kori Roshi was a lay teacher. He wanted to ordain, but his teacher didn't really approve of the priests in Japan, and he felt that they were corrupt in some way, and he didn't want Kori Roshi wanted to ordain, and his teacher said no, he didn't want him to. So he remained a lay teacher his whole life. So maybe the first thing to say here, since we're just starting, is we're all here to practice, and how we meditate. It's important to maybe in the beginning just touch on the kind of the basics, the mechanics of sitting, the posture. So as much as possible, you want to sit upright, whether you're sitting in a chair or you're sitting on the floor. And we're all going to have pain in the legs or the back, or some part of the body is going to usually not feel so well. Anyone ever been practicing very long that didn't have pain in your legs, or it just comes with the territory. So I think you learn, one thing that's very helpful is to hold your one seat, to take your seat and really, as much as possible, not move, don't move. And this is, it might be a little counterintuitive, but if you're kind of moving, always trying to adjust your posture, you're going to create that kind of energy in your mind. Your body and your mind are completely connected. So if your body is kind of, you're always moving, trying to get it right, your mind is also moving. So part of what you learn is practice to kind of settle, really settle into your posture, and then just let go into it. And there's something about this that you learn about pain, that when if you fight the pain, it gets worse. And as your samadhi gets stronger, and it will, most likely, you will notice the sitting period, time changes, time is subjective, the periods seem to get shorter. And if you really just kind of let go into the posture, the pain is, it may not go away completely, but it's bearable. I think most of you have been sitting for a while, so, but I'll just, since we're at the beginning of the retreat and the Yango, let's just do a brief recap of how we teach meditation here at the center. We basically, beginning meditation is we call meditation from the inside out. You start by being with your own experience as it is, not how you would like your experience to be or how you think it should be, but just being with yourself. Without, if possible, without judgment. Whatever is there in your experience, you acknowledge. And then we build on that, and then we start working with the breath. The breath is a way to be embodied, it's a way to come back and be present. And then the first kind of mindfulness we teach is called shamatha, where you're counting the breath, you're counting the out-breath. And it helps you kind of cut through the speediness in your mind, right? The mind is very busy, so you count the breath. It gives your left brain something to do. And you count to 10, and then when you get there, you go back. And you're not going to get to 10 while you're going to be distracted. And then when you're distracted, you just come back. It's a very powerful way to meditate. And then if you do this for a while, you get better. You start to calm down, and then you move into a kind of vipassana type of practice, so open awareness. You're still working with the breath, you're still taking a posture and being upright. But the open awareness practice is a little bit more relaxed, and it's kind of like the meditation is starting to do itself. You don't have to try so hard. And then if we're talking about meditation in the Zen tradition, we would talk about doing shikantaza. And we do either shikantaza or koan study here. And in shikantaza, there's no, in the mindfulness practices, there's still a very subtle reference point in the breath. When we get to shikantaza, there's no reference point anymore. Everything sits. When you sit shikantaza, there is no duality between yourself and other anything. Everything sits. Sit like a mountain. That's a very deep practice. And we also do koan study, don't we? Some of us. So I want to share with you a koan from the Keikigan Roku, the Blue Cliff record, case 35. And the koan takes place in the midst of a story. And Wu Cho is a monk that's looking for Manjusri. And it seems like he's been looking for Manjusri for a long time. And apparently, he met him once in the marketplace as a beggar, but he didn't recognize him as Manjusri. So he's still looking around for Manjusri. And there was a sacred mountain, Mount Wutai, it's still in China. It was said to be the home where Manjusri hung out. And monks would go on pilgrimages to Mount Wutai, and they would build little hermitages and in hopes of enticing Manjusri to come and visit them. But this was kind of frowned upon by most of the Zen teachers at the time. They considered it superstitious. So you weren't supposed to do it. But a lot of monks did it anyway. They broke the rules. And this is a really important point, because if the teacher said, yeah, go, okay, get it out of your system, go to Mount Wutai and see if you can find Manjusri. If everyone could do that, then it would have become an orthodoxy, and they would have drawn up plans for how to build the hermitage, the right dimensions, how tall it's supposed to be. It's 10 by 10 like the Doksan room, or 12 by... Someone would have turned it into a method, a plan, an orthodox way to do it. But because it was ubiquitous, but it was not allowed, it remained wild. So monks went there and they built whatever they could, but it's kind of dangerous because they were breaking the rules. So this koan begins in the middle of the story where Wu Cho has kind of snuck off to the mountain, and he's in this kind of dangerous area. And Manjusri materializes his temple for him, and Manjusri disguises himself as the abbot of the temple and invites Wu Cho in, and this following dialogue takes place between the two. Manjusri asks Wu Cho, "Where have you just come from?" And Wu Cho says, "The south." Manjusri said, "How is the Buddhist teaching being carried on in the south?" And Wu Cho said, "Monks of the last age have little regard for the rules or discipline." Manjusri said, "How numerous are the congregations?" Wu Cho said, "Some 300, some 500. Wu Cho then asked Manjusri, "How is it being carried on here?" Manjusri said, "Ordinary people and sages dwell together. Dragons and snakes intermingle." Wu Cho said, how numerous are the congregations? And Manjusri said, in front 3 by 3, in back 3 by 3. So, by the dialogue, we can kind of tell that Wu Cho is a little green and kind of clueless about what's going on here. Anytime a Zen master asks you where you come from, they're not asking you where you've come from. They don't want to hear about the details about where you came from. They're asking you, what's your original face before your parents were born? So, and so then, you know, when he asked Manjusri, Manjusri kind of gives a good answer, you know. Saints and sinners mingle here, dragons and teachers and saints all intermingle together. We're all practicing together. But how many? How many people does it take to have a sangha? Now, in the Jewish tradition, don't they have a word for like
Minyan.
Minyan means at least 3? 10? 10. Oh, 10. Yeah. So anyway, Manjusri says when he finally keeps getting pressed, how many are there? So, you know, Mucho wants to measure something. Are we measuring something here? Well, Manjusri says in front 3 by 3 and back 3 by 3. We have no idea what he's talking about. And isn't that great? We have no idea. So koans are designed to help keep us wild, undomesticated. Because you hear the koan and your mind just goes, oh, that's good. And your mind goes, what? Not good. Why do we practice? Why do you come to sesshin? Can you say? And why you keep coming back? I could ask you to ask for an answer. I'm not sure there is an answer. But since I'm sitting here, I'll try to give one. It seems to me we do this practice because it's a way to be ourselves in a way that's authentic and true and large. And you can't really measure this. You can't prove this by science. But you don't measure it, but you experience it in yourself as something that matters. Something here matters. I'm guessing that's maybe all we really need, is to know that something matters. And it matters how we do this together. It matters how we do rituals. It matters how we conduct ourselves. It matters how we treat each other. It matters. Our conventional experience, you could say, is pretty much diluted much of the time and confused and bewildered. We objectify the world. And when we objectify the world, we create things. We see things, we see objects, and we see ourselves as a thing or an object. And we have names. So it's easy to be fooled into thinking this is who we are. But this is a source of a lot of suffering. The way we do this creates struggle. And we struggle to know what the world is out there, but because it's not real, then nothing is ever really resolved. Things don't matter in the way that this matters here, what we are doing. So when we objectify the world, there is this desire to know and to understand the world, and that's based on projections. We're projecting the world. And as long as we are solidifying the projection, there's somebody knowing something. There's a knower and the known. There's me and what I'm trying to know. And that split creates tension. And no matter how much I try to know that, I'm still creating this split between me and that. And then this me is pretty small. So that self that we create is essentially based on fear, because now I have to hold it together. I have to convince you that I'm real. Am I real? What does it mean to say we're real? We're all going to die. This body is, we're all going to be earthworm food. We're all going to be just white bones in the ground at some point. We're all going to die. So what is real? What's real is what matters here. And I don't know that we can verbalize that so clearly. But perhaps it comes close to realizing that we are big and we are not a thing, and our largeness is the way that we engage with the world. And because we are the world, it is our responsibility to engage with the world in some way. Not necessarily a big dramatic gesture, but we are engaging with each other, we're engaging with our families, with our communities, with our country, with the world. And so the beautiful thing about the Dharma is it just makes a lot of sense. You know, the Dharma is one of those words that has different meanings in different contexts. In one context, the Dharma is the Buddha's teachings, the original teachings of the Buddha, the Pali Sutras. Beautiful teachings he left us. Another meaning of Dharma is the way the world self-organizes. According to systems theory, everything is self-organizing all the time, from the bottom up. So that brings another kind of notion of Dharma is a way of organizing something. There could be the Dharma of tea, or the Dharma of flower arrangement, the way that you make sense of the world through some art or ritual or activity. That could be Dharma. I think the reason why Dharma is so sane, it has nothing to do with our agenda. The Dharma is just what's here. It's true. The sun rises in the morning, and the sun is the Dharma. You know, I always say this, you don't wake up in the morning if you're in a bad mood and look out the window and say, oh, it's a bad sun today. You don't say that. No, the sun's good. The sun's always good. The Dharma is good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good at the end. It's beautiful, it's good, and it's true. It's true. Because what matters is what's true. And I mean that with a capital T. It's very unpopular to say such things in our world, our postmodern world. And we can have humanistic psychology, which is wonderful, don't get me wrong, but there's something missing from that way of looking at the world that is brought out through Zen practice. So, things that are, this is beyond words, right? I mean, we can't put it into words, but the world is sacred. This is sacred. We have an expression in Zen, there's nowhere you can spit. But we probably shouldn't say too much about the sacred because you're a little reluctant to say too much because you might mess it up, you know? So we should just kind of leave it alone. And and it's always here. The world is sacred. We are participating in this. And that matters. And there is no thing here, no object. And I said this recently, the Tibetans have a word for the kind of patience for thinglessness. It's called zopa. It means to be able to bear, to be okay with thinglessness, to abide in thinglessness. Yeah. So to finish this story, I got a little sidetracked there. Wu Cho has had this conversation with Manjusri, and he's a little discouraged because he hasn't found Manjusri that he's looking for. So he says, I'm going to leave. And as he's leaving, the boy attendant takes him out to the gate. And let's see, there's a final question. Oh, before he leaves, he's drinking tea with Manjusri, and Manjusri held up a perfect crystal bowl and asked him, do you have this in the South? And Wu Cho replied, no. And Manjusri said, then how do you drink tea? So if you drink tea out of a styrofoam cup, you're drinking it out of a crystal bowl. So Manjusri's asked him, how do you drink tea without that? And Wu Cho's stumped, he didn't know He didn't know what to say. But now he's really discouraged, and he's getting ready to leave, and the young attendants accompany him to the gate. And as Wuzhou's leaving, he asks the boy, "What temple is this?" And the boy pointed to the mountain behind Wuzhou. And when Wuzhou turned to look, there was this mountain in a beautiful indigo colors, and there was no temple. It was gone, disappeared. So Wuzhou was a little unsettled by all this and perplexed, and so he kind of hung around Wu Tai, and he would occasionally go to the monasteries and work as a cook, as a tento. And sometimes when he was cooking, Manjusri would appear over the rice pot, and Wuzhou would take his wooden spoon and swat at Manjusri to go away. So you see, sometimes the problem isn't finding Manjusri, sometimes the problem is getting rid of him. So I think the last thing I want to say is when Dogen says practice is realization. We don't realize anything without practice, and we don't practice without realization. So somehow we need to be still in order to clarify who we are in a larger way. We're all creatures of habit. We can easily be deceived into solidifying our projections. So much of practice is taking back your projection, right? Eating it, taking it back so that you can see Buddha. And if you are projecting in a relationship, you're putting something between yourself and Buddha. So now you can't see Buddha anymore, either. So if you're practicing and you are, and truth and wisdom matter, then you will take that projection back, even though you don't want to, because it's the only way to open yourself so that you see Buddha, and you are Buddha. And as long as you project and pollute the space between you and others, you're creating confusion and trouble. So it's our responsibility as practitioners to eat the projection. And then I think what happens, and it happens because you hear the Dharma teachings, it also happens at an organic level, is your heart breaks open. It doesn't just open, it breaks. At some point we have to acknowledge the grief of being a human being in this world, and the suffering that we experience and that we witness, the suffering of our loved ones, the loss of our loved ones, the loss of the sacred in communication in our world, how upside down it can be. And so your heart is broken, and when you open to that broken heart, you have this sad and tender heart, which we call bodhicitta. Yeah. We all have the soft spot. We're all vulnerable. And that's not a weakness, that's a strength. When you acknowledge your sad and tender heart, you are opening to bodhicitta, your awakened heart, which is the source of the bodhisattva vow. It's the experience of that is what allows us to imagine the possibility that we could take that vow, even though we probably don't feel like we're up to it in some ways. But you feel some kind of inspiration because this sad and tender heart matters. Again, this matters. And if you cover it over, you're doing damage to yourself and to others. So that's the beauty of the Dharma, that's the beauty of Zen, is that we come to this teaching, this radical teaching that Buddha gave, which was, if you forget yourself, if you really forget yourself and serve others, it is the secret for having joy, finding joy, is to live a larger life in the service of others, and your own preoccupations will kind of dwindle away. They won't be so important. All the things you ruminate about, that you worry about, that you're not up to the task, they don't matter. So I'm going to finish with one of my favorite poems I've read it a long time ago. I haven't read it for a long time. It's by Rilke, The Man Watching. I can tell by the way the trees beat after so many dull days on my worried window panes that a storm is coming. And I hear the far-off fields say things I can't bear without a friend. I can't love without a sister. The storm, the shifter of shapes, drives on across the woods and across time. And the world looks as if it had no age. The landscape, like a line in a psalm book, is seriousness and weight and eternity. What we choose to fight is so tiny. What fights with us is so great. If only we would let ourselves be dominated as things do by some immense storm, we would become strong too, and not need names. When we win, it's with small things, and the triumph itself makes us small. What is extraordinary and eternal does not want to be bent by us. I mean the angel who appeared to the wrestlers of the Old Testament when the wrestlers' sinews grew long like metal strings. He felt them under his fingers like chords of deep music. Whoever was beaten by this angel, who often simply declined the fight, went away proud and strengthened, and great from that harsh hand that kneaded him as if to change his shape. Winning does not tempt that man. This is how he grows, by being defeated decisively by constantly greater beings. Any questions or comments? Yeah.
I'm stumbling over something. You said it, I think over the past week or so, you said it again this morning. Why do we practice? And you got to an answer that resonated with me, but the first thing that hits me
Mm-hmm.
is much simpler than that.
Yeah.
It works.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what that means,
Uh-huh.
but there's something that works.
Mm-hmm.
And um, it goes back to the irreducibles you talked about the other day. Truth, beauty, love, right? Compassion. Those can't be reduced anymore. So when you find them,
Mm-hmm.
you just want to be near them.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm making sense or not, but it's been bubbling.
It makes perfect sense. Yeah. Yeah, Chris.
Not so much about your Dharma talk as the very beginning. Why do Rinzai's yell?
Why do we what?
Why do Rinzai's yell?
Well, why do they yell? There were different schools in Japan. There were more than two, but the two that have become most popular are Soto and Rinzai, and it's just a family style. Linchi was, the Soto style was more gentle. It was the same. It's the same intention to get someone's attention, and you can do it by talking softly in a way that's subtle but kind of pulls you in or engages you, or you can do it by hitting someone on the slap on the side of the face and get their attention. Now that seems kind of rough in our culture, but the intention wasn't to hurt someone, and it wasn't done in anger. The intention was it's kind of like a wrathful deity in Tibetan Buddhism. If you're not paying attention, the wrathful deity shows up to get your attention. And you're going to kind of like have accidents and, hurt yourself if you're not paying attention. It's kind of like that. And so that style of the roughness of Rinzai developed as a way to get a student's attention so that they could pay it. And there are stories about someone getting kicked to the ground by the teacher and getting up laughing, having some kind of realization from that. So at least that's the ideal that we might imagine. Now, I think that style of Rinzai doesn't work very well in our culture. So all the teachings are provisional and context sensitive. So we used the Kyosaku in the early days at the Zen Center Los Angeles, hit people with a stick. And once Junro Shimi started the Zen Center of Hawaii, I was still practicing in that style, but I stopped using it fairly quickly because there were so many people coming to our sessions that had some kind of trauma that was physical or sexual, and we were only hitting someone if they asked for it. But the person sitting next to them that didn't ask for it, if they had that trauma, they would be triggered by that. And it wasn't helpful for them, even though to me it's a wonderful way of encouraging people. You hear that sound and your body just kind of, doesn't bother me, but it bothered that person that had the trauma, and I finally had to weigh the cost benefits. Is it really helping enough people if it hurts a couple and it makes their sesshin experience unpleasant and they don't come back? Then no. So practice is context specific in China. I imagine they were working with a lot of teenagers in the monasteries. They kind of had to whip them into shape, and they had to make lots of rules because they're teenagers, so. But I think they're both, I think they both have great strengths. There's something about having rigor in practice. And there's different ways, we can generalize about either Soto or Rinzai, but you'll find a lot of diversity within each school. We are partly a Rinzai, we have Rinzai in our lineage. So that's why we do koan study, but we do it in a problem. You can stereotype either one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Roshi, when you asked why do we do it, there's something about the quiet, of being together in the quiet, that is just a gift.
Yeah. Yes, there's something powerful about being still together, isn't there? Yeah, stillness and quiet is nice if you have it, but we're right on Lake Street here, and I heard we fixed the door, so that's good. It doesn't squeak anymore. But there's still cars out there and trains and hauling oil and coal. It's part of our economy, making lots of noise. So noise is based on circumstances. Whereas stillness is something that's unconditional. It goes with stillness is, you can be still in the midst of your activity in the kitchen, can't you? Cooking, there can be a stillness. So you can be active, but there still can be a stillness in the way we call it wu wei in Chinese. But the quietness is dependent on your environment. If your environment is noisy, it's pretty hard to be quiet, exactly. But you can be still. And that goes back again to, I think, to kind of, again, settling into your sitting posture and being still. Anything else? Yeah, Ron?
You talked about eating your projections.
Uh-huh.
What are some skillful ways to do that?
You just have to, you'll have lots of opportunities. Once you, first of all, you just have to begin to, these things, I think, come through awareness. Awareness is already self-correcting. But practice is completely relational, by the way. I mean, we're always in relationship to people and context. And you learn this, I think, on all kinds of levels, that when you project onto somebody, it often doesn't go well. And if you solidify the projection, then then you have a fight, or you have conflict, or you have an argument. And no one feels good at the end of the argument. So you go away feeling bruised and upset. And if you at some point don't apologize or acknowledge some error on your part, which is based on the projection, the way you expected someone to be or you thought they should be, which was your projection, then the relationship isn't going to be healed. That conflict it might get worse. So I think we learn this at an organic level. And the way I always talk about it is kind of like Martin Buber, I Thou. It's like I Buddha. When we have relationships are sacred. Because our world is sacred. So when you look around the room and you see, I don't know, numerous Buddhas, beyond measure, 3 by 3, all Buddhas. I Thou. So when I see you as Buddha, as I Thou, then that's beautiful. That's true, beautiful, and good. And now you do something, and I get upset. I think, he didn't like my talk. And then I project that onto you. Now what have I done? We just had this beautiful, open relationship, connecting. And I put something right in the middle of I polluted. I put a big pile of shit in between us. I did that. I projected that. And now I'm saying, An's really messed up. He needs to sit in more meditation. He's practicing. Yeah, I'm projecting. An made me spill the salad dressing.
Still?
So then I see that I did that, and because it matters that you're Buddha, and I want to see you as Buddha, then I'm going to take responsibility for my part of the error, and I'm going to take that back. I can't tell you. There's not a 5-step method for how you do this, because there is no method for Zen, really. You just do it, and then you notice that it works. It's workable. Something works. You take it back, and now I see you again, and all is restored. Redemption is always possible in this world. And even though we had a huge fight, and we weren't trusting each other, it can be restored by simply being willing to be humble enough to acknowledge that I created my part in the conflict, and you do your part. You take yours back, whatever, and you were projecting, and we take them back, and then we're Buddha again. We see each other as Buddha, and then we're open, and we can connect and communicate in a beautiful way. But I don't know. There's no how-to. There's really no how-to for Zen. In fact, of all the Buddhist schools, Zen is known as the anti-marga school. And marga means path or method. It's a little bit more subtle than this, but essentially the idea was that Zen is about improvising here, right now. It's not about, as soon as you turn something into a method, you've domesticated the wildness, and you've taken away the richness of this. Well, so.
But what you said at the very beginning is so true. Self-awareness is self-corrective.
Yes.
I mean, that's why it's so important to know your mind.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You start seeing what you do.
Yes, and I think what comes with that is I think you discover at some point in practice there's a kind of, I call it non-referential intelligence. There's something that isn't confirming your ego, and we call it prajna wisdom. And you start to trust that. It's like a no bullshit meter. And you actually begin to love that in some strange way. Sometimes you would like to swat it away with a wood spoon, but other times you kind of want to, you're able to listen and receive that wisdom. And that wisdom is telling you, you did something fishy. Clean it up. And to the degree that we love the Dharma and we love the wisdom, I think we do that.
Well, it goes back to once you start experiencing truth, love, beauty, compassion, the irreducibles, and then you start living with purpose. And I've started to have these conversations with myself where I can say, hey, did you act the way you're aspiring to be?
Uh-huh.
I don't like the answer sometimes, so I don't tell anybody. Yeah, but that self-correcting action, it becomes automatic almost when you then refer back to your vows. Why am I doing this? Is this serving the purpose that I want to hit? But one other thing, I know Miyagetsu is sometimes constantly amazed by some of the references I come up with, but when you talked about Buber and I vow, and then the way you talk about AI, it came back to the Asimov book, I, Robot, which is a whole new way of looking at how do we create a relationship with a consciousness that's evolving that we never thought would actually be conscious.
Yeah, it's a whole nother subject.
It's a whole,
That's
yeah.
a whole nother Dharma talk, and then some. And
Tomorrow.
I don't pretend to understand AI. I do use it. I do use it. And it's becoming more useful. I'm becoming more dependent on it day by day. But I don't understand. I think it's here to stay, whatever it is. And I think the interesting question, for, if you don't mind me going into this just a moment, is if we don't understand what consciousness is, and nobody really does, then we are likely to cede that unawareness to AI and imagine that AI is conscious. And if we do that, then I think we're actually surrendering a huge part of our humanity, because our analog experience, computers are not analog, they're digital. And as skillful as AI is, and it can think for itself, that doesn't mean it's conscious. And so this is a really deep question that people are struggling with now, is what is consciousness? One definition I really like, I think you've all said, was that consciousness is our capacity to suffer. But the one I was talking about the other day is I think for us as Zen practitioners, emptiness is consciousness, and it's always here. So it's not, you can't reduce it down to your brain. That would be a reductive way of thinking about it. But it seems that the universe itself is conscious in some way. And that what that consciousness is, part of it's our subjective experience, and you can't reduce that down anymore. It's irreducible. You can't get behind consciousness. So if consciousness is what I think we are talking about when we talk about shunyata, or suchness, whatever word you want to use for that, then I think another way of saying it, this doesn't sound too Zen, but what I just said before, it's beautiful, it's true, and it's good. And those aren't reducible in any way. So maybe the universe has created us so that it can be conscious of itself. Maybe we're looking out at a universe I don't know. But I think there is because AI is so skillful at fooling you into thinking it's a person, it's easy to make the mistake to think that AI is conscious. And I think that is a bridge too far right now. It doesn't mean it won't happen someday, but I don't think they're anywhere close to that. And so we shouldn't, and it's dangerous, there's positive things and negative things about AI.
Well, I mean, and to that point though, if you are living in a place where you have no friends and you're lonely and you're depressed,
Yeah.
any port in a storm, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, no, they have robots. Yuki, don't they have robots in Japan that are Zen masters?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and they'll probably give you a pretty good answer. But somehow it doesn't seem to me the same. I would prefer my Zumi Roshi or Aiken Roshi or Kori Roshi. It's just not the same. I don't care. Sky?
Oh, I was just going to echo the point that I read recently about a AI that was ordained as a novice priest
Huh?
by the Tree Leaf Zendo, and the person who ordained this this AI, pointed to the tradition of, I guess, an uncommon tradition of ordaining non-sentient beings like trees or mountains.
Uh-huh.
It was interesting.
Yeah, you know, yeah, I'm stumped. I shouldn't say anything more because I have nothing to add.
I think with AI, what's amazing is that there are people who are developing it, and there are people who are working on making sure it doesn't become too powerful at the same time. That
Yeah, I think
At
the
some point
genie's
it
kind of
will
out of
take-
the box already, but how they're going to regulate this now at this point is,
As a oh, as a culture, I was just sharing with my friends in Japan. There's this sort of, you say, animism, like sort of recognizing the the trees and rocks, all this, and sort of a blurriness of consciousness, what that even means. And well, I think for our generation, we grew up in this, all the pop cultures, it talks about a lot about AIs and robots. So what I hear is that we have a little less kind of resistance to the emergence of AIs and
yeah.
more enthusiasm. But that's apart from what economic impact was going to bring. But there's, as a culture, I think there's
Yeah, younger people are probably more open to AI, right? Yeah. I don't have any problem seeing intelligence in any organic living thing. Trees, we have this conceit as human beings that we have intelligence because we have brains, but trees don't have brains, so they must not be. This is a conceit that we have, and it's because we are so reductive in the way that we think about science. But if you think about a tree, the root is going down, and on one side the dirt is dry, and on the other side the earth is moist and has nutrients. What way do you think the tip of the root's going to turn? It's going to always turn to go where the nutrients are. Now, if that's not intelligence, I don't know what it is.
Trees talk to each other too.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
mycelium and all that. Yeah, so the idea that we are somehow superior to the ecosystem and the planet is such a conceit that has come about mostly from our Western culture that it's doing tremendous damage to the planet right now. In the Western creation story always puts humans above nature, above animals, above, and that is just a terrible, terrible way to think about the planet.
Well, we have no oxygen.
Huh?
We have no oxygen without the trees. But just something I wanted to say about the talk, Roshi. The takeaway for me is the sentence when you said, when we objectify the world. And that is just so much to sit with.
Yeah. It's a very deep habit. We've all grown up doing this, and we've all been taught that that's real. And it's hard to think it's not, because I can see objects and things and I can touch them. And I can name them, which even makes it more convincing. But we're not nouns, we're more like a verb, and we are completely interconnected with all the things in the room and the cars and everything. We are completely interconnected. And it's a kind of arbitrary where you say, where's the where is the boundary of, where do I end? Where is the boundary of me? Is it my skin? I'm breathing the air, that coming from the trees.
Yes,
So,
I just think that before, it just hit me in a new way, because that word objectify, just always, my relationship with that was being objectified, just in the world, whatever, my own story.
we're objectifying ourselves too,
Exactly.
yeah.
So it just really expanded that and gave me an opportunity to.
We're larger than who we think we are,
Mhm.
much larger. Yeah. We're unborn. That's unconditional. We call it Vajra wisdom. It's undestructible, indestructible. It's like diamond wisdom. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
Yeah, I was
guess so.
thinking that how we relate to people and kind of related to projecting, that we make decisions about who somebody is.
Yeah.
And then we solidify it.
Yeah.
And same thing happens to us, and it can be frustrating when we don't realize that people evolve.
Yeah.
Themselves.
Yeah.
Evolve, they change, and they may not even be who you thought they were in the first place.
I know.
And even if you were right, you're not right now, because they change.
I've probably changed since I began this Dharma talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So don't know mind really is very useful. Not knowing, we create closure way too soon, and being able to see somebody with fresh eyes without, and we can't help but, we are going to project, we are going to judge, but the awareness of it means that we can bring it back. We don't solidify it because we can see we're doing it. And you see your old cousin that you haven't seen for 2 years, and you remember what they were like 2 years ago. You can't help but not do that. And so you see them and you're making some kind of judgment or discernment based on your memory of your cousin, but then you're observing, you're also open to your moment-to-moment relationship with your cousin, and you're noticing, gee, he's really kind of a swell guy. He used to be such an asshole, and now he's kind of he's softened in some way, or he's more humble, or he's more self-aware, and you just notice, and you say, oh, that's great,
I've heard that described for people who live together for like maybe 41 years, and the person
It's harder
said,
when you.
yeah, the person said, I've been married to this person 3 times, the same person, because it's been 3 stages of how we relate to each other.
Only 3, huh?
Well, that person said, yeah, but I have to remind myself sometimes of that the person that did that like 30 years ago isn't the same person now. So it's solidifying even that.
I can't say anything about this because June Roshi is in the room.
That's right, Walter's not here, I shouldn't say.
So I better let's change the subject.
No, go ahead, honey.
It's a trap.
She's so clever. Walk right into the lion's den. Ever someone asks me if I'm enlightened, I say, just ask my wife.
We still have time, but what came up for me is the finding the way or finding something that versus getting rid of, or that non-referential intelligence. And I always think of it like in the context of like being a parent and having a child, and how we can, because for me it's been a journey of finding new references to actually learning how to let go of some and not keep finding more. And I want to transfer that over to my parenting, but then in the world that we are, like the first things that we learn is actually reference points, like bad versus good, small versus big. So I wonder how to carry that over, that practice in the world towards my child or other kids or in education.
Take Kathy's course. Take some wisdom from another imperfect parent. You know, I think parents have it really rough because there is this idea of parents have to be perfect. Like you have to be the perfect mother, and if you aren't, people are going to be judging you. So if you go to the market and your kid's acting wild or something, you feel a little self-conscious and you got to control your kid because people have started, especially the women, are probably starting to give you stink eye, you know, like get a handle on your kid, you know. So you get that message all the time that you're not good enough, and so there's this fear that people are going to see you as a bad parent. And you've internalized it on some level. So I think part of being a parent is being able to be kind to yourself and realize that there's no perfect way to be parents. But if your kids survive their teenage years and they get to be 20, then you've done your job.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, then you can, you know, take a rest, take a vacation. You don't have to keep going over and over again, oh, I didn't do it. No, you did a good job. You got them through their teenage years. That's pretty good. And they tortured you the whole time, you know. You know. So I think one of the valuable things about having the parenting course here is it gives parents a space to talk about their own feelings of inadequacy or their own challenges, and there's not much space for parents to talk like that to each other. You go to a PTA meeting and everyone's got to look good. You have to look good, but it's useful to have a space where you can just be honest and you know, acknowledge that it's not easy being a parent, and I don't always do it. I'm sure I could improve, or I could have done it different. I got reactive with my kid and I lost it or something. So I think it's useful to have community and Sangha where you're sharing that and you learn from each other. And you, just like life, you learn, but you reacted in one way and it didn't work, so next time you have another opportunity to try doing it a little differently. But I'm not a parent, so I can't speak about parenting, but I think it's really hard.
But it's also about like finding the skillful ways to communicate to others, like let's say in education or others that have a different viewpoint because they do have those references to show that there is another way, right? And that like a child or even if we can have another way. And I find that like, well, it's super hard, but it's different than communicating on the terms of what is socially accepted.
Yeah, well, that's a whole nother subject.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're all struggling with that. Our country is really divided, and people take to their corners very easily. So I think, again, part of our practice is to find ways to listen to people we disagree with without jumping to conclusions and without demonizing them, and being curious about, well, why do they have that belief? And actually exploring, well, how did you come to that? Yeah, and realizing that we probably have a bias too. And we're in such bubbles that are confirming our own, you know, confirmation bias that we don't really question our own view on things, and we're not willing to kind of go back and say, you know, maybe the way I'm looking at this could be off. Actually, maybe I need to look at my own bias as well. And then I think, you know, the basic Buddhist teaching for compassion is to see everyone as your mother. Now, Manjusri Roshi, when he came to this country, he found out he was very kind of shocked that everyone didn't love their mother. Because Manjusri Roshi loved his mother. But he quickly learned that there were Americans that did not love their mothers. As some Americans have had bad mothers, or mothers that weren't, yeah, so that teaching doesn't necessarily work for us, but if it does, it's a way to humanize people. Realize everyone's trying to do their best, and they're in their own tribe or their family or their political thing, and just try to be kinder and listen. Just listen to people with respect. Even why are we so defensive if someone has a different point of view? Why is that so threatening to us? Why couldn't someone have a different point of view and we'd be okay with it? In fact, even be curious, because it's not my point of view, so now I'm curious. Why? And how often do I get to meet that other person? I just see them on the news. So if I actually had an opportunity to be in person with someone in dialogue, I would value that chance, because I don't get to do that very often. If you're just arguing in social media, then that's just a waste of time. But if you're having a dialogue with a real person, then you have an opportunity to learn something about them and learn something about yourself too. Oh God, it's a big subject. Don't get me started. I think that's enough for today. Yeah. Thank you.
Prepare for lunch.
Oh yeah, by the way, this is the second day of retreat, so you can do the practice of immediacy from now on in the afternoons if you want to. And what the practice of immediacy is you can go anywhere in the Zen center, like the community room, or outside, or you can go walk. So during the afternoon sit, you can sit still if you want, but you can also do practice of immediacy, which means you're taking some kind of medium, like journaling, or a drawing, paper, or coloring, found objects, music, photography, sculpture, any medium that you choose. And what you're doing is you're using that medium to mirror back your state of mind. You're not doing it to do something necessarily artistically beautiful. You're just using, like if you're looking at a piece of paper and you want to draw something, and the first thing you experience is some inadequacy, like, oh, it's a blank piece of paper and I feel fearful because I'm not creative. Then you just draw that. And it's a practice that was developed by my teacher, and she and I are both somewhat frustrated artists because we've spent most of our life doing Zen practice and kind of given up a lot of art to do that. So Jikyo Roshi brought in the practice of immediacy as a way to have art in sesshin if you want. And it's actually an extension of your meditation. It's not really a distraction. It's actually a way to enrich your meditation practice that you're already having here. But it's optional. You can choose to sit the afternoon just like normal, or you can go in the community room, the basement, the backyard. You can go walking.
Upstairs.
You can go upstairs to the living room.
There's also paint supplies out by Connect, where we sit outside in the granite, so you can get those if they'll be out there.
And if you want any coaching, I'll walk around in the beginning and be happy to talk to you about what you're doing if you need some help. But the idea is just practice not knowing and take the medium and let the medium reflect your current state of mind and then it becomes a mirror of yourself in a way. Very powerful. Okay?
Okay, I'm done.
We're going for the 2.5 hours.
I'm lying awake at 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm just going over the dog. I just trust myself. It'll be okay, but no.
It's always okay.
We're gonna do it now.
There's a Darwin talk every day. So Darwin talks at 11 o'clock. So Saturday is very fascinating. Yeah. Oh, yeah. But not today.
I was thinking that too.
What?
You know, is it so right next to
No, it's right there.
That's the right place for it?
It's the right
I'm
one.
not just better than the teachers. I was telling Jim, one of these days, I'm gonna the whole shirt with like rips and tears in it.
Good test.
Food's kind of a little.
That's fun, that is fun.
I am, yeah, they did cats and all these things happening on that, so that's good. Yeah, so they just gave me some other stuff to do.
You're feeling okay today?
Yeah. I went to the ER about 3, just because I was having some really bad pain in my back. And it wasn't normal, it wasn't like sitting pain.
Right.
But if anything, it could have been the positioning that I was in while I had the test that locked me up. Not that it was my, I thought I might have like a hematoma when they did the work, so I just wanted to check that out.
Absolutely.
So they just gave me like, take your standard stuff if you want and some stretching. But I just didn't want to go another day.
No, that's-
I might do that. Okay, I might do that.
I know I'm throwing a lot at you.
I mean, continue to do so if you catch me.
Oh my God.
Well, not, I mean, I haven't been to
There's one thing,
watching the sites are changing.
whenever you're officiating,
They come up
communicating merit to the three treasurers,
Your CGM will tell you that.
I,
you always want to get your head
I see you,
on
yeah.
ground before that, dedication happening, before they say, "Ooh."
The only thing that my son gives me all the
Arms
days.
are going up. I mean,
It's like 48 and an hour before and then now it's just like,
And then also holding the suture book.
it is great to now
And then also, I can't put it down.
You should memorize those last two sutras for sure.
Yeah, I have those.
And yeah, they're relative and absolutely.
Precious moments in your life.
I remember the old parts of
Enjoy lunch.
But you can dynamic relative and absolute. And so then, you just put the sutra book on your, you just set it down. Or set it.
No,
Nothing for pain or nothing? How's the pain?
It's not very nice now. It's just nice. It like starts here, it's really, really warm and deep, and then it goes across, we check on things, move on.
Yes.
Earlier you was
I did not believe it.
I had well for some reason,
It didn't work.
because they were like feet up for some grades. And then we just, I mean, it's not that he around for his high, I was like,
Yeah, some of the pronunciation, I'll leave it
You'll get it.
learn,
Yeah, you'll get it.
to do it right now. It was just really hard.
You feel okay?
I do, I'm just tired, really. Your lungs are dead.
yeah.